BNP TV.
Thank you. I'm not going to use a microphone because it's one you have to hold like this, and as you know I speak for quite a time and your arm goes dead. If you can't hear over there, please bring your seats down. Can you hear all right? Yeah. And down here as well? Yeah. All right. Okay, I want to start with a quote from the Bible. Remove not the ancient landmark which thy fathers have set. Proverbs 22 verse 28. How many of the ancient landmarks which our forefathers set in this country have they removed? You can scarcely go to any British town or city and recognise it from that which our grandparents would have recognised, because the beautiful buildings that they'd have seen were torn down not by Hitler's Luftwaffe in most cases, but by corrupt, particularly Labour politicians in the 60s and 70s who took backhanders to allow developers to tear down our heritage and put up Marxist concrete boxes in their place. That was a deliberate act of cultural sabotage. And you'll have seen on Question Time the other day when I was questioned, and didn't have a chance to frame a reply, of course, but did I think it was deliberate what they'd done with multiculturalism? And I said, well, yes, it looks like it from here. And 2 days later in the newspapers, there you are, a senior Labour spokesman saying, yes, we did it deliberately. We encouraged multiracialism deliberately to put our political opponents, the right in inverted commas, on the back foot to make sure we stayed in power forever. And it's part and parcel with the same thing. It's not just destroying our identity by mass immigration. It's also destroying our cultural identity by wrecking our cities. It's also taking away our political identity and traditions by submerging us under a European superstate. It's all been a coordinated, systematic, deliberate plan by the Labour Party and the left in general, which now includes David Cameron and his Tory thugs, to destroy this country and deny our children their birthright. And it's a disgrace which we are going to put right. Can I have my piece of stone, please? You'll see why in a minute. And perhaps the most powerful, the most evocative examples of the way in which they are tearing down the landmarks that our fathers set, our forefathers set, is seen in town after town, city after city, where the churches, which symbolised the religion on which the freedoms and identity of this country are largely built, are not torn down, but they are converted into mosques. We see it literally from Cornwall to Glasgow, from towns on the west coast of Wales right the way across to East Anglia. Not a day goes past without this happening. You see it, and make no mistake, this isn't something just happening again by accident. And the Christian elite, perhaps, are great and good, the archbishops, all the people who sold the pass. Perhaps they don't realise the significance, the symbolism. But the Muslims do, and I do not blame the Muslims. I blame the archbishops, the bishops, the priests. They're the ones who have done this. They are indeed traitors. It is deliberate religious symbolism designed against our people. It's there in Islamic religious teaching that no building of the infidels, the kafirs, the unbelievers, can be taller than a mosque. So they want our tall buildings. Everywhere they can, they will build a mosque taller than the highest possible church. And because often the spires of a church are taller than anything else, that will do. And they're taking these things over, not primarily so their people can worship their God, but so that the symbolism is there, the power is there, to show that their way is stronger than our way. That their way of organising the world, their way of looking at the world, is going to predominate over and crush our way of looking at the world. And I tell you this, over my dead body. tell you that that is not an idle piece of rhetoric, because that, as I'm sure you all know, is a serious possibility. It's a price I'm willing to pay, a price plenty of our people are willing to pay, a price we have to be willing to pay, because the only reason this country is already not dominated by mosques over hundreds of years is that for centuries, British people and Europeans in particular, the French, the Saxons, the Greeks, the united armies of Christendom at places like Lepanto and outside the gates of Vienna, united armies of our people stood up and fought and said, "Over my dead body." And every time that happens, there was traitors within our own ranks. When the Turks advanced on Vienna and nearly took it, and the Germans and the Poles together pushed them back, Louis XIV, the Sun King of France, sent cannons to the Turks to help them beat his enemies. And they still do exactly the same thing. The traitor politicians, the traitor great lords of the Western world would still sell our heritage and our birthright to those people for short-term political advantage and for money. And it's only, as always, the ordinary people, as they call us, the common people, the decent people, who stand and fight. And that's what we're here doing yet again tonight. Because I wanted to take it into question time. What it is, it's a piece of a gravestone. It's a black piece of a marble gravestone. And I wanted to take it into question time. In fact, I did. But because it was brought through their security by one of our team, and they spotted it, it was reported, it was snitched on, and word came down from the great and good, "Oh, no props allowed on question time." Well, that may be the case. Had I just pulled it out of my pocket, as I intended to, when they were saying, well, you know, why is the Labour Party losing votes because of immigration? That's the point at which I would have pulled this thing out of my pocket and slammed it on the table in front of Dimbleby and said, that's why. Things like this repeated hundreds upon hundreds, thousands fold. This is why, because it's only a small thing, but these things add up. And what this is, it's a piece of a gravestone from St John's Church in Longsight, Manchester, where our people going past it a few weeks ago saw to their horror a JCB ripping aside the old gravestones, the monuments of our forefathers, to make a car park for the mosque which that church is being turned into. And there was a sign on that church talking about how the mosque was coming and a phone number to contact them, the same phone number that was used in Manchester to organise protests against the Danish cartoons. So this isn't just their right to practice their religion in a little corner of our country. This is about the systematic imperialistic drive to turn our country into their country, the thing that we alone stand against. And I wanted to say, that's the example, because this isn't just a piece of rock. This is somebody's gravestone. And you can see from the fact that it's black marble, this isn't something from 300 years ago. This is a relatively recent gravestone, and it and all the others were taken away and pulverised. They put them through a crusher. Most of them were reduced to dust to make sure that they weren't there, and to put them down on the car park as hardcore.